Yeah, we grew up, but nobody warned us. Life moves fast when the world keeps turning. Kids in the backseat, parents getting older. Still leaning on my brothers when the weight gets colder. Whoa, we're all just trying to make it through. Whoa, love you, pal, I got you. Whoa, we're all just trying to make it through. Love ya, pal, I got you.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to episode 4 of the Love You Pal podcast with me, Jay, and Mike here we're recording this just after the holiday weekend, so kind of in recovery mode, at least for me. I'm on vacation this week, so recovering a little bit. Hope you guys enjoyed hearing about our adventures in sport and coaching, and I can't implore you enough. Give us feedback, please. We want to hear from you. We want to hear what works, what doesn't work. As we're in the infancy of this, we want to know what you guys like, what you don't like, and what you want to hear. So today's show is directly out of our messages and comments of what people wanted to hear. So keep those coming so that we can engage with you with what your struggles you're going through. So without further ado, right, we're going to talk today about kind of holding both ends, get back into that sandwich generation talk about independence and having parents that are losing independence and kids that are gaining independence. So trying to balance that between the two. We're going to get into some stories about our side. All three of us have at least one child that's going through this. And we've dealt with parents, grandparents that have gone through this as well. So that's that's the topic that we're going through on this episode. So, fellas, what's up?
What's
going
up,
on, everybody?
So jumping in, right? It's not infrequent that there's days or there's hours in a day where, you'll get a text from mom and she's like, hey, this is going on. And then your kid texts you. It's like, hey, I want to stay over so-and-so's house tonight for a sleepover, or I want to go to somewhere with, one of my friends, and maybe we don't know this person as well. Maybe, so we're trying to gauge that independence where our child is asking us to go somewhere, be a little bit more independent, and then mom's texting us being like, hey, I need help with this. When can you come up and help me with this? Or do you know where this is? Different stuff like that. So we're kind of right in the middle of that, right? So holding that ground, standing in the middle, and seeing both sides can be difficult. It can be difficult to see parents struggle with independence. I know that towards the end, Dad was struggling with independence a lot, not being able to get up and get out. We'll talk about Grandpa and how his independence was slowly kind of taken through his medical journey. And then we'll talk about the kids and how their independence, we have to start letting them kind of spread their wings and leave the nest a little bit, even though they are a little bit younger, but still, 3, we're going to be in college and they're going to be spreading their wings and they're going to have to make some adult decisions. So that's kind of where we are. Again, bringing back that sandwich generation topic in this episode. It's a little bit more serious than the last one before, but we have some funny anecdotes. Don't you worry, because that's what we do. We're here for the funny.
The real life, you have to have a little bit of humor to get through it sometimes. And we have some real funny stories that we can let you guys hear about dealing with elderly parents, as well as dealing with our kids who are getting ready to head out there into the world and spread their wings and fly out of the nest. But it's all about the preparation for them and making sure that you're giving them the correct guidance, as well as working with the elderly parents and grandparents that are out there, and making sure that you are ready and they are ready for everything that's kind of coming down.
Yeah, I mean, I've got I've got the, I guess you could say the furthest along with kid wise, for me, having a 15-and-a-half-year-old, we're starting to explore driver's ed. We're starting to explore, you know, getting a driver's license. I mean, we're going into our sophomore year in high school. So for us, it's a matter of understanding the concept of freedom, independence into applying for jobs, follow up for applying for jobs. You know, when they call you and they say, "Hey, we'd like to have you come in for an interview," actually being timely in your response for that. Um, and then, the avenue of college. I mean, sophomore year is usually when you start looking at colleges, figuring out where you want to explore career wise, education wise. If you want to go to school, if you want to go to a far school, if you want to go to a close school, county college. So yeah, it's a lot to balance. And for us,
University of Hawaii.
yeah, I wish. Um, but it's a lot to balance because for us we have a quite a large spectrum. I've got somebody that's preparing for colleges and first job, first car, first driving. And then I've got, 5-year-olds that are trying to figure out their independence, and we're trying to figure out how much independence we want to give them. Abby just had her birthday, and she's at the finally at the age where it's, if she doesn't want to tag along, she can stay home by herself for an hour or 2 hours and um, have a little bit of independence there. Um, but with that comes responsibility, and you got to make sure she's at the
Brings me back to the Big Daddy. I wipe my own ass.
That's it.
right.
Well, I have a great story about that. So
My own ass. Well, yeah,
Wipe-
I think we
wipe
all
my
do.
own
I
ass.
think all three of us.
yeah. So
All right, so I think we'll separate the two, right? Let's talk about the parent side first. So that loss of independence from parents, grandparents, that elder side before we get into the kid side, because I know the three of us have gone through this with, again, both dad and with grandpa, for the simple fact that we saw their struggle, their health struggle throughout their last years with us. So talking about, we'll start with grandpa. Being down the shore this weekend, grandpa lived, our grandma and grandpa lived down in Seaside Park in New Jersey. We went down there for vacation all the time in the summers, and they lived there year round. When our grandmother passed, grandpa stayed down there for a little bit, but he wanted to be closer to us. He was having some health issues and he wanted to be closer to us. So we moved to, and I guess it's an over 55 community, which was about 10 minutes from our house, and thrived there, loved it there, had a lot of friends, but continued to kind of decline while he was there just because he had a lot of heart issues and diabetes that was controlled, but not really controlled. So he had some issues, some comorbidities, as they would call them, due to that, which caused him to lose independence pretty rapidly, in the fact that he was, at the end, a double amputee. So he couldn't get around by himself. He needed our assistance in, going to church. And if he wanted to go out somewhere, sometimes he needed our assistance. Sometimes he took it upon himself, as Mom reminded me a couple weeks ago. But seeing that, like, and then Dad lost his independence. He had some back surgery and just never really truly recovered. But he was trying to be independent, but I don't know how much he was. So, yeah. So let's dive into that a little bit. Jay, do you want to, what, so between grandpa and dad, right? Like, what did you notice
and what now, like thinking about it from the perspective of being a 40-year-old?
I mean, so for me, I'm kind of like the class clown of the family. I've always been like the jokester and like did stand-up comedy for a little while. Didn't really succeed, um, but yeah, I've always been like the jokester of the family. So with Grandpa, when he moved up here, he had not had any the amputations yet, but shortly after he had his first leg amputated, so made it a little more difficult for him to get around. So we had to go over and help him kind of get back and forth to dinner and different events and stuff. And if he needed to go shopping, we would take him out grocery shopping. But one of my favorite ones was he in a wheelchair, probably relatively closely after the first amputation, and we went over to take him to dinner, and he was like, "All right, let's get on over there," and like we roll him out into the hallway, and then I just start pushing him as fast as I can. And I'm like, "Let's go," and he starts making these motorcycle sounds, rolling down the hallway, passing all these other elder 70, 80-year-old people in the hallway, and they're just laughing hysterically as this high school kid's flying down the hallway with his grandfather in front of him, pushing the chair to get him to dinner. And he was just so happy. Had such a great time with that. And it's like, those are the memories that you like to have, or those happy memories. And like, you're going to have the happy memories. You're going to have the not so good happy memories. But, it's all about just remembering that while they're going through this process, they still are human. Like there's a lot of things that go on that you have to really focus on with them, that make them, you have to focus on the medications, the medical needs and everything like that. But you also have to realize that, like, yeah, there's still that fun person in there. I mean, with Dad, Dad lost his mobility, and the last few months were rough for him. He was a very independent person, was someone that would go out and play golf several days a week, at least 9 holes, before he had the back surgery, the first back surgery. And then he lost the mobility, and it kind of declined from there. But it was like, we had to go up and help him. We didn't feel comfortable with like Mom going away over the weekend and leaving him alone, because there's just too much that could possibly happen. Our parents, we grew up in a split level. My mom and dad, they still lived there during that time, and we still had that with the split level. It was difficult for Dad to get up and down. Dad was he was always downstairs in the basement, or the lower level, I guess, not really a basement of the house, and he would it was kind of like his sanctuary. So towards the end, he really couldn't go down there, so he spent most of the time upstairs. And like, that dude found Instagram, and the amount of funny stuff that he would send me during the day, it was probably 20, 30 memes or little shorts of just stupid stuff that he would send me. It was always funny to get. But there's as you get older, there are some things that go, and especially when you have back surgery like he did, and he had some continence issues, and I was up there taking care of him one day, and he gets up from the chair, and he's like, "Oh, I gotta go to the bath, like go to the bathroom and everything." And like, he gets up from the chair, and like, I see his back. I'm walking him down the hallway, and he's just got that toddler blowout up the back. And I'm like, "Dad, did you know you went to the bathroom?" He's like, "Nope." I was like, "Well, you did, and you blew it out." And he was like, "Oh, did I?" I was like, "Oh, yeah, you did. It's it's pretty bad." So help him get him cleaned up and everything. And I was like, "When you get this under control, I'm gonna get you a T-shirt that says I can wipe my own ass," like they said in Big Daddy. "I wipe my own ass," like that kind of stuff. So it was a tough situation to see, especially with the man who is like, you think he was the strongest person out there. But in reality, like we said, you have to prepare for it, and it's something that's going to happen. It may not be that exact situation, but like, you have to be ready for the decline, because life is a bell cycle. You start out naked coming into the world, and you don't know anything, and it's all uphill for a little while, and then you start going downhill, and the decline starts to happen, and unfortunately it does happen. And you just have to be prepared for it. That's really the biggest thing. He'd be
Be a
trying to
scary
drive
thought.
it.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Steal it from him.
Grandpa would
Scary
let him
thought.
drive it.
Yeah, I think one of the things that, at least for me, right? I mean, the grandpa story that I remember is when he took his Jazzy into downtown Denville without telling anybody, and mom got a phone call. She's like, yeah, Joe decided to go on a little adventure today down to Denville. We need to make sure that we tell him that that is not an appropriate thing to do, and that we need to stay on the grounds unless, we know where he is. Like, okay, cool. But I think one of the things, and not that I completely remember this, I was probably 16, 17 years old. So this was the last thing on my mind. But seeing mom deal with the stress of dealing with grandpa and then dealing with us, right? She hit it really well, but there was definitely times that you could see that it weighed on her. He was constantly in and out of the hospital, which luckily was right next door to where he lived and was close to the house. But it was constantly on her mind. She kind of knew, I think, that the decline was there and that we were moving towards the end. But like Dad, Grandpa was the same way. He'd go to the hospital for like congestive heart failure, and then he'd be back. And then 2 weeks later, he'd go back, and then he would come home. So I think, well, one thing is that we come from a very resilient bloodline between the two of them for sure. And the other thing is, I think that she managed the stress really well, even though you had to know that it was weighing on her, right? Because we were in that situation, a year ago, 18 months ago. We were in a similar situation. And for her, the stress was not similar. I think it was ramped up only because it was Dad. And, till death do us part, she was an amazing caregiver for him and gave up a lot of things to care for him, and never resented it. And I think that looking back on it and having some conversations with her, that now she's kind of trying to find her place in society where it's not a caregiver, where it's not, a partner, where she's starting. There we go. Here's the real life. That's a squirrel.
Sean, you have that. You kind of nailed it on the head with that. Is you go from this caregiving as a parent because your kids need to be cared for, to allowing that independence to where that empty nest syndrome, where you get to the point where next thing you know, your kids are playing and they're at a friend's house or they're out front, or, you wake up and you're like, wait a minute, my kids got their own breakfast. They got dressed today. Like, there's nothing for me to do for them this morning. What can I do? And you fall into this kind of like vacuum space of, where am I still needed? And for kids, the big thing is, being that emotional support, being that mental support, is having that place for them to come back to when they are not sure, or mess up or have an achievement, and having that positive or that trusting relationship with your kids where they can open up. But then all of a sudden you move into that caring for parents, and now you've got the weight of caring for your parents while still trying to be there for your kids. And because it's inevitable, no matter how independent they are, at some point they're going to come back to you and they're going to need something. Something's going to happen, and you're going to have to be there for them to help them through whatever process they are in. Whether it's, my 5-year-olds, coming into an issue, they start school and they don't know how to interact with certain kids or bullies. It could be Avery who starts driving and gets her first ticket, or gets pulled over and doesn't know, what to do at that point. But then, kind of like where mom is now, in those conversations we have, it's a sense of purpose, and everybody in the world needs a sense of purpose. That's why people find careers that they absolutely love, because they want to make a difference in whatever career field they choose.
us, it's public service. For you, it might be, like dad was the telecom, telecommunications industry. Um, Everybody has a sense of purpose. Mom, it was caregiving. Her whole life was caregiving for kids, caregiving for parents, caregiving for dad at some point. And now she sits there and, is trying to find that purpose. And she's doing, I think, a great job of, evolving in that and finding where she can give back and kind of feel that purpose. But it's a hard transition no matter what phase of life you're in. Uh, and especially for this, like we keep talking about the sandwich generation, stuck at caregiving on one end, caregiving on the other. And then all of a sudden you've got to cope with nobody needs me now. Because that can happen in the sandwich generation as well. It can be abruptly halted to where now your kids don't necessarily need you. Now your parents may have passed or have gone into, say, an assisted living, or have gone into a facility that, is doing most of the caregiving, and you are truly being able to enjoy that time with them and check in. But you're going to find yourself in a void, and it's going to be rapid peaks and valleys. And being able to navigate that and understand that and be able to fill those voids, I think, is a very important aspect of being in this generation.
And I mean, we've touched on the physical kind of independence avenue, right? But there's a bunch more, right? The cognitive. Are they taking their medications? Are they okay, with money? Are they just on QVC every night, just sending it with the old credit card, right? We may have a family member that likes to do that too.
But you need
I
6
think
blenders.
I think they've taken her credit card.
I think that's been handled.
Yeah, that's been handled. Social, right? So if you have a cognitive decline or a physical decline, you're not going to be able to get out and see your friends, right? And talking to Dad, he missed going to the club. He missed seeing his guys. He missed playing golf with them, Saturday skins or Sunday skins and the Wednesday night league and the scramble on Fridays. He was a very social person when it came to that stuff. And him not being able to get out and be social on his terms, I think, was difficult for him. He did have people that came over, stopped by. They would come, like they took him to lunch a couple of times.
They took him out a couple times.
Because he was on a restricted diet for sodium, so he couldn't eat what he wanted to. And like those are things also other than the physical, right? You have to look at, and a lot of times it's equated back to like when a elder person loses their ability to drive, where you take the keys and you're like, all right, we can't do this anymore. You ended up, on the curb, or you ran through the front of the bank because you thought that the gas was the brake. So we're going to take your keys. And that throws them into a tailspin because now they truly are not independent. They have to rely on someone to take them wherever they would like to go, which to them also can feel like a burden. So they may not want to ask you, right? They may not want to call you and be like, hey, I want to go out with my friends. Can you give me a ride? Again, back to where our kids are, right? Like now, like we said in that first episode, right? My kids are making plans. I don't even know about them because they have cell phones and they text, their friends. So they're getting independent to the point where they want us to give them a ride. And then our parents are more dependent now to where we have to give them a ride to places. So again, kind of sandwiched in the middle, we're that meat and lettuce and tomato and mayonnaise right in the middle, trying to navigate both sides. So it can be super difficult. But Michael, that was a good segue into like the kids side, right? Go ahead.
So just to hit on that, we fortunately never really have had to experience taking keys from our parents or taking that independence away. Dad's was taken away because he physically couldn't drive. From my experience on the law enforcement side, and I've had these conversations with many members of the public, because I've been in that situation where an elderly parent, say, gets into an accident or a fender bender, um, law enforcement officers are given the task, at least in the state of Maryland, to reevaluate drivers or send drivers for reevaluations. And a little bit of resource for those that are listening that may be wondering, what do I do? How do I go about, taking that independence away? Because it's a hard decision to make, and you're not going to be, the most liked when you do it to your parent. Um, don't be afraid to utilize the source of law enforcement. And I hate to say, let us be the bad guys, but let us be the bad guys. Talk to your local police agency and say, hey, do you have this? Does your state have this program? In Maryland, like I said, it's a driver reevaluation program. It's a form we fill out. It's kind of like playing Plinko or playing casino on our computers. We fill out some information. It goes to the MVA, and the MVA says you need to come in for a reevaluation. If they pass the reevaluation, okay, then we're going to be, in that tough spot of, do I let them drive or not? It might also be a place for you to say, okay, if they were able to pass that, maybe they're still good to drive, and I don't have to make that decision now. If they don't pass it, the MVA takes their driving privilege away. It's not you, it's the state that's saying your privilege now has been impaired, or your ability has been impaired so much, either physically or cognitively, that if you can't pass these basic things, we're going to take your privilege to drive away. So it kind of takes that burden off of you a little bit. It's still going to be a burden. They're still going to be frustrated. You're going to have to be there to support them. But at the end of the day, that hard decision can be made in an indirect way that allows you to still be a support for them versus the enemy. You've taken my independence. You've put me in this position, and now they don't want to reach out to you because they're afraid, what else are you going to take from me? What else are you going to do? Are you going to put me in a home now? You've already taken my privilege to drive away. Now what's next? So don't be afraid to utilize those resources that are out there. And again, this is a big thing, that we're going to keep pushing, is don't be afraid to send us emails, send us, comments, direct messages. We're happy to pass along any information or resources that we know of that we've gotten in both our careers of life experience as well as our personal life experience.
It's a good point. It's nice to not be the bad guy and to have an agency to be able to kind of fall back on and be like, yeah, well, sorry, it is what it is. That Wes Moore said, can't do it.
Not my decision.
Yep. It's awesome. And sometimes you have to let them make their own, just like maybe give them examples of things that have happened, and you're like, well, maybe it's time to be reevaluated real quick, just to make sure that you're good. And then if they're not good, be like, all right, well, we've seen that you're not good. Now we can move forward with plan B, right? So looking at anything else about the parent side that you guys, or the grandparent side, like anything else you want to touch on real quick?
CAD stuff. If you to say, oh no, I'm good, I'm okay, I'm just going to sit this one out, or I'm going to wait it out. It's going to make those automatic notifications. So utilize technology to your advantage, especially with parents. And there's various ways you can sell it. It's so inexpensive at this point that you can absolutely take that technology and use it, especially if your parents are quite a distance from you. So I just want to touch on that a little bit. There's factors out there, and there's abilities out there to help you stay connected, even if there's a little bit of distance between you and your parents.
Yep. It's nice to know people. It is nice to know people.
And like, I was lucky to, like Michael said, I was a communications officer for the county. So I was able to, I think it was the October incident where dad ended up in the ICU for a few days. My first stop on my way up, because I knew they were going to be open, was the communication center. And like Michael said, I had a note put on the system, whereas if there was a response to the house for whatever reason, fire, police, EMS, that we would be notified. And very lucky. Like, we're all very outgoing. We like to say, like, my kids are the mayors. We're the mayor's family, and my kids can talk forever. So, it's nice to have the aspect where we have those contacts, kind of like Dad did, where we can use those resources to the utmost. Because I was a communications officer, it was simple for me. I knew what I had to do. It's available to everyone out there. If you have an elderly parent and you want to be notified, you can call your local communications center if it works on a regional, or you can call the local police department and they can have it added to the system as well.
Fire
It's
department
not,
as well. I do
yeah.
premise hazards all the time at work.
Yeah, it's not something that's just for people in the industry. It's for everyone. It's something that is not utilized enough, I think, because there's a lot of people that are out there that live in third-story apartments that can't really get up and down the stairs easily. So you're gonna have to you go out there and it's a walk-up 3-story apartment. You're gonna have to assist them in getting down. It's not a simple thing. And from the responders' end, you know what you're going into. You're like, okay, I have a double amputee that I got to walk down I got to get down the stairs. So I need to bring X, Y, and Z equipment to get them down. It's the same thing with Dad. Like, with Dad, we were lucky enough that Dad knew all of the guys in town, all of the officers in town. And he was able to build these relationships with them where we got to the point where no matter what, we kind of knew one of our guys was going to be on duty because they were either sergeant or higher in the department. So we were able to know that we were going to get that notification. Yeah, it might not have been a text message for me, but I was luckily Facebook friends with a lot of these guys. And I got a Facebook message, and I pulled the old mom line of, I got out to my car after work, and being part of a government agency is there's sometimes you're not allowed to have your cell phone in certain areas. So I got a Facebook notification from one of the officers who's a friend of mine. And he was like, hey, just so you know, like, your dad's going to the ER. And it was like 2 hours before that. So I was able to text Mom and be like, hey, where are you guys? What's going on? And classic mom line is like, how do you know? And I was like, I have my ways. Like, we have our ways of knowing what was going on up there with them. And like, one of the hardest parts for me was most of the time, up until 5 years ago, I was 5 minutes away. Even if I was at work, I was 5 minutes away, 10 minutes away, was able to get there and help out whatever I could do. And the hardest part was that not as having that distance in between. And there's a lot of families that deal with this. There's a lot of kids that move away, a lot of kids that have to relocate for jobs nowadays. And the job industry is not the easiest. It's a very employer friendly hiring environment right now. So you have to kind of make the sacrifices you have to make in order to get the positions you need to support your family. So that's exactly what happened to me. I needed to have another position, and I was able to get a position down here in Virginia that would support my family enough. So we had to move away. And it was tough. It was like leaving Mom and Dad. My in-laws were still up there at the time. We were 5.5 hours away from if anything happened. So that was a difficult transition for me. Not knowing that, like, I would be right there. I could be right there, having the EMT background, having the EMS, the 15 years of EMS background that I had. It was very simple for me to be like, hey, listen, no, he needs to go to the ER as compared to going to urgent care. And then towards the end of Dad's life, it was, Mom didn't want to be a burden to people. And like, but the thing is, like, when it comes to that, you need to go to the place where you're going to get the best care. And with Dad, he had so much going on that it was like an ER trip. It was like, you thought it was going to be a doctor's trip for most people, but he had a lot of stuff going on, and it needed to be an ER trip. With his cardiac stuff, he got put in a program that was quote unquote elite, I guess, is that you have to be elected into this program because you have such drastic and major cardiac issues that you're put on, and this team is put on your case to handle it. And with him, that was probably the best thing, and that's probably what kept him around as long as it did. Because if he wasn't put on that, if he didn't have that support from those doctors, there's no way to tell if he would have made it even the 6 months further that he did. So
Yeah, and that a great point there is advocating for parents as well as for kids. Being that advocate for your parents, for your grandparents, for your spouse. If something doesn't feel right or you feel like something needs to be investigated a little bit more, be that advocate, be that person. If they don't want to, oh, it's fine. It's not a big deal. Well, to me, it is a big deal. So we're now going to investigate a little bit further. We're fortunate that we have some medical background that allows us to have some knowledge to be able to say, let's look into this. However, if your spidey senses are going off and saying, hey, I think there's something more going on, be that thorn in the side. I know that not many people want to do that. Not many people want to stand up to, physicians, or because they're an authoritative figure, which is, I mean, it's good, but at the same time, they're a person just like you and I. They just have a lot more medical training, right? So if something doesn't feel right, be that advocate. And I can say that for both kids as well as parents. All right. So looking at, I think we've beaten up the parents enough. Let's transition a little bit to the child side of it, right? So as we look at a timeline, right, at, age 2, they're holding your hand. They want you to lay with them. They want to, they get up 3 times in the middle of the night to say, oh, I'm scared. You got to put them back in bed, right? 5, they're going to the playground, and all of a sudden they don't want you to stand next to them. Oh, no, I'm going to play with my friend. No, you sit over there because you're embarrassing, right? And that's where the embarrassing starts. And that's our job now, is just to embarrass our kids. That's my job. That's what I try to do. Then, 10, 12, they're, hey, I'm going to go to so-and-so's house. I'm going to ride my bike there, which for us in our generation is no big deal. We used to do that all the time. But now the shift of how parenting is and how society is, it's a little bit more nerve-wracking. And it's our kids. It's not, us. We didn't think anything of it because we were just thinking about ourselves. We weren't thinking about the larger picture. And then all of a sudden, you come home from work and you're like, oh, where's, I'll be like, where's Liv? She's in her room, door closed, either on the phone or doing her nails or doing her hair, right? I mean, you guys, I'm sure, have experienced this with your girls. And then we're not here yet, but then they go to college and you're like, oh, well, you call them, you're like, hey, just make sure you're alive because I haven't heard from you in a week and a half. And yeah, just kind of missed you and wanted to make sure that you were still around, right? So even these little milestones lead up to them eventually leaving the nest and us seeing how our parenting affected them as human beings when they do go to college and they get their first job and their first apartment. I think that, and to tie it back, I think that them seeing how we care for our parents has a direct impact on them and how we show them that we're letting them be independent. It's a long-winded way of saying that.
Yeah, and I think we have to look at it like how are you going to tell the healthy independence apart from something you need to actually worry about? Like when we were kids, we had a lot more independence than our kids now. Like we said back in the 90s summer, we were told to go outside, ride your bike, get out of here, go do something. Which is what we're trying to build in our kids, and it builds confidence in them. It builds the independence that they need going forward when you hit that the age 20 and you're independent, you're off of college, and you need to have that responsibility of getting up and going to class or going to your job, your part-time job, or whatever you need to do. It's going to build that. And you have to look at it as like the pattern. Is this a normal kind of thing, or is this just one offset incident that is different? And with the independence, you're going to have those times where, yeah, that's going to be a one-off thing. Like they didn't make it to work because they got a flat tire. Hopefully you taught your kid how to change a flat tire. It's a pretty simple thing to do, but it's something that you need to do and that everyone should know. I mean, we had AAA growing up, and we could call AAA if we needed to, but it was a heck of a lot faster to just change it yourself. And you're not waiting 2 hours for a tow truck to get out there, 45 minutes for the tow truck to change the tire. You could do it in 15 minutes and be done. And I did on the side of 95 going into New York City at 4:30 in the morning. But it's just something you got to do and learn how to do. And those are those one-offs that, yeah, you're going to worry about them. You're going to be concerned about them. But it's not something that's going to be a consistent thing where you're going to have to worry all the time. It's not like they're going out to a not so great party and doing things they shouldn't be doing.
Or they might be. I mean,
it's also
but that's also where they learn that independence right now is a privilege. You know, but before you're 18, you live here, and it's a privilege. I mean, it's their right to live here, right? But if you leave here, it's a privilege. You know, when you start going places, and like we talked about a little bit previously, like, oh, I'm going to so and so's house to sleep over, and then we call that house and we're like, hey, let me talk to so and so, and they're like, oh, well, they're not here. Oh, all right. Well, now we have a consequence.
Yeah, now there's
right?
a problem.
So it's learning for both. I would say both us as well as them, where that line is, right? And also not to let us impact that decision, right? But not let our emotions impact that decision for them.
Well,
so us being angry or upset or sad because they're growing up, we can't put that burden on them. We have to take that, kind of internalize it, and look at, hey, we're moving to the next step of parenthood.
Yeah, and like we had this conversation with my oldest, and like she's much more independent. She has her group of friends, and like this was a very simple thing, but like we would pick up would be like 10:30 at the friend's house, and you'd leave the house at 10:25 to go over there to pick them up, and like you pull in the driveway at 10:30, and you get a text message from them like, hey, come at 11, and it's like, no, I'm already here because you told me 10:30, and that's what was the agreed upon time, and that's just not how it's going to work. So it's like we have a clear and concise time now where it's like, hey, listen, I understand you're going over there. That's cool. I totally fine with it. But I'm going to be there at 10:30 to pick you up because that's the time that we've agreed upon. And if you do want to try and change it, or you want to see if you can stay longer, you need to text us at least a half an hour before that. Because like we have three other kids we have to worry about who could be at other friends' house, and we're trying to stack and stagger who's picking up who and when we're going to pick up who. And we live in a town, in an area where it could be 5, 6, 8, 10 miles difference in driving in one direction, then going back the other direction. So it's not something that we can kind of go on a whim. Luckily, right now we're at that time frame where our oldest is just she's 4 years older than our next in line, so it's a little bit easier with that transition. But it's still like, if I give you a time, that's going to be the time, and I want you to be old enough and adult enough to make that right choice of, this is what I agreed upon, and this is what we're going to do, and that's just how it has to be. And if you're in the middle of a Mario Kart game, then let me know, and beforehand I'll give you that extra 15 minutes. I just need that time frame to work through what I need to work through, and we need to work as a partnership in this contract.
Yeah, I deal with that every day. I dealt with it last night. Kids go for a play date. Hey, I'm coming to pick you up at 8. How about 9? No, how about now? Like, yes, it all depends on what's going on. I'm usually the one that's up later, so I end up
taken a lot of those pickup duties, but last night, was 8, and I'm like, all right, well, I want to watch a soccer game. So then I was like, let's do 8:30, and then it was like, now it's 9. I'm like, all right, well, just tonight we'll make it 9, but we've had this conversation with our oldest that when we give you a time, that's the time. I understand that you're having fun, but that time is the time, and you need to be respectful of not only your time but also our time. And I think that's something that is a struggle for kids, is to respect other people's time, because they're not as in tune, I think, with time as we are, right? Like I know that time is finite, so we only have a certain amount of time. So I take my time very seriously now, and especially after, everything that happened in the past year, I'm very protective of my time and very protective with time with my family. So letting them understand that time is a value and it's a commodity that we don't get back, I think is important. And I think that can help with those issues.
Yeah, and in regards to time, like we talk about the sandwich generation, like we've talked about the elderly side of it, the aging parents, and we've talked about like the kids part. But one thing that we haven't focused on is your time and your time and for your mental health. I mean, there's been times it's like you just get worn down and you're running and running and running and running and running, and whether it's with your parents, with your kids, or with both. I mean, there was times when I would be running home to run up to Jersey to see mom and dad, and then I'd run back, I'd sleep for 6 hours, and then run back here so I could make it back here on time for a softball game or a t-ball game. So it's important that you make sure you make time for yourself too, and make sure you make time for you and your relationship with your wife, because that could be something that it could impact you as well. As you're in this partnership with your wife to work together to solve these problems, and making time for you and your significant other is a huge part too. And this is something that we started focusing on, that my therapist suggested is like scheduling a date night. And while I am not that great at scheduling date night, my wife is, like, luckily enough she is, and making that time to get out and just be with the person that you started this life with and this family with, and get that time to focus back on why you started it. And like I said, I'm not the greatest with that. I am not very good with scheduling, and we have so many tools that my wife has implemented to try and get me better at scheduling. Um, but focusing on time with your spouse and time by yourself. I mean, everybody has that time where you just need to go out and either go for a drive or go to the driving range, hit some balls or whatever. Go play pickleball by yourself, or go just have time to yourself, um, to recover. I mean, life is not, like we said, you're not farting rainbows. You're out there living this hard life, and everyone is out there living this hard life. And there's people that are going through the same stuff as you. But take that time for yourself, whether you need it that day or you don't need it that day. You need it. You need to take time and make sure you focus on your own health and your own mental health. Make sure you're going to the doctor. Make sure you're talking to your therapist. Those are the ones that are going to be there to help you through all of those situations.
And I think, go ahead, Mike.
And that's a big concept, is keeping hobbies, and I am one person that has learned it the hard way. I lost a lot of the hobbies that I was involved in.
Knitting.
Knitting, yeah. I wish knitting. It's nice and relaxing and inside, but and not as expensive, I guess, in ways. But yeah, so having those hobbies, right, and keeping at least one or two of those hobbies, yeah, once you have kids and once you get more involved in your career, you're not going to have the extravagant, life of doing whatever you want whenever you want. However, exercise, whether it's for me, it's exercise and golf. Golf is my main turn to, always has been since I was a kid, whether it's a driving range, whether it's a putting green, whether it's going to play around a golf, even if it's only 9 holes. That disconnect from the outside world is truly needed. Um, it's funny because I can say, in place of one of my hobbies, I've had to put, therapy. I go to therapy on a regular basis. Um, Hour of time that my phone gets turned off. It's an hour of time that I disconnect and can offload a lot of the burdens that I've been carrying. Um, and it's my healthy outlet that even if I feel like I don't need to go to therapy, you know, that week or that month or whatever, um, I still go because even if I just have a conversation about what's going on in my life with my therapist that has nothing to do with, growth at some point, you know, it's still that offload, that disconnection. And it's important when you're carrying such a heavy weight with kids, with parents, with your career, that you have that safe outlet of how can I disconnect and just reset my body, reset my mind, reset my health. Um,
I think another thing that we're really fortunate about, or fortunate to have, is the relationship that the three of us have and dividing and conquering, right? There's not a lot of families that have the dynamic that we do, right? In my opinion, um, there may be the majority. I don't know, but from what I've seen, there's a lot. A lot of people aren't able to divvy up the workload like we did when we were in in the crisis, right? When we were in the thick of it. And I think we did a really good job with that, and we're fortunate with that because you can't do it alone. As the oldest, I want to take on a lot of the burden, but I can't. You just can't do it. This is not something that you can do alone, and don't feel like you have to do this alone. There are a ton of different resources out there for aging parents, and growing kids, right? I can touch on the aging parent stuff real quick. Just from my professional background, I deal with this on a regular basis, but also dealing with mom and dad. Make sure that you have your will is updated. A lot of times people will take and get their wills done when they get married. Cool. When they start having kids, they'll amend the wills, but then it kind of sits in your file cabinet or sits in, your fireproof safe in your closet, and you don't do anything with it until the very, very, very end. So make sure that you are updating that as your life is progressing. That's one thing. Two, if you find that you have a parent, a grandparent, a spouse who is losing it cognitively and is unable to make decisions for themselves, make sure that you look into getting a medical power of attorney and a living will. So one of the things that the living will do is in the when you are unable to make decisions for yourself, your family can turn to the living will and it can say, this is what my wishes are should certain things happen. Super important. Not a binding legal document when it comes to first responders, but we can go there another day. Make sure that when these decisions are made, that they're communicated to your whole family. That's something that we learned about post dad dying, was that he had a DNR in place. I did not know that until I got the phone call that he had died. But I guess it was signed about 2 or 3 days prior to him dying.
Yeah.
That was never disseminated to us from mom. When we asked her, she was like, "Oh yeah, I was going to call you and let you know." If these are pretty big decisions, and they're not my decision to make. It's not Jay's. It's not Mike's. It's not my mom's. It was my dad's decision. This is what I want. I want to go the way that I want to go. But if those are things that are occurring, make sure that there's a communication there. Make sure that everything is set up with your parents or grandparents. That who's the executor of the state, so that at the end of their life, you don't have to worry
about getting all these things together.
And-
We've learned a lot about this in the past 18 months, and I think that we're in a better spot now than we were because Dad kept a lot of things to himself.
Is for you, one, as a parent, and two, to make sure that your parents have in place or have updated, and that you have copies, even if they're not official copies, you have copies of those wills. Distribute them out, more copies that you have, the better, because at the end of the day, even if it's registered, it might not be the most updated one that's registered. So you want to make sure you have those copies. Beneficiaries, for those of you in any kind of, retirement or life benefits. In the first responder field, there's life benefits provided. God forbid something happens to somebody. You got to make sure your beneficiaries are updated. And I bring that up because one of the comments our listeners had posted was probate. If you don't have anything updated and something happens to your parents, or something happens to you, all of those funds or all of those assets or the estate, they get tied up in government. Government oversees the entire thing in probate court. It could be months, it could be years before everything gets settled. Where if you sit down and take, that little bit of time to have those tough conversations to get those copies of those wills or the power of attorneys, that little bit of a burden off of you, off of your kids, and I know we have, based on what I'm seeing, we have maybe some parents, aging parents that are listening to us as well, outside of the sandwich generation. So if you're looking at how do I make it easier on my kids, it's making sure you have those documents in place and your kids have copies of those documents.
And make
I
them
can't-
known where they are.
Yeah.
Yes, correct.
I can't speak more or enough about how frustrating probate court is. I've known several people that have dealt with it. I've watched them deal with it, both from an aspect of separated parents, both from the aspect of, parents and children, where, you've got a will that's in place and, it can't be executed.
You got to watch more Price is Right, bro. They say that every day in the commercials.
Or get your pet spayed and neutered.
Well, that's at the
Yeah.
end. But the commercials, you got life insurance, man. You got to get it. It's pennies a day. Pennies a day. But we're running a little late, running a little long today again, as we tend to do. We like to talk. So next week, we're going to do a little bit of talking about one of our favorite things, the three of us. Something that Dad introduced to us back when we were young. We're going to talk about some golf life lessons and how we learned about different things in life through our golf game. Started out in the front yard shagging balls down the road, and it was the only time we were allowed to use the real golf balls. We had to make sure we picked them up, so Dad didn't hit him with the mower and put it through the window. But yeah, so we're talking about some life lessons regarding the golf game. And we're going to talk a little bit about how Dad's relationships at the club with the members there affected our life as well and his life as well. So Sean, you got anything to wrap up with? Mike, you got anything?
I mean, this our golf episode next week owed to the last major of the year, the Open Championship.
Yes.
Or British Open, what it used to be called. Now it's the Open Championship. I'll close with this. Like we were talking about just previously, if you have questions about any of this stuff, please reach out. Get in our DMs. Our email is listed on the website, loveyoupalpod@gmail.com. Please reach out. If we don't know the answer, we might know somebody that does know the answer. So don't be afraid to reach out and ask these questions. We've gone through this. We don't want you to have the hiccups that we had when we went through it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think to wrap up with Mike. Yeah, and make sure we're here to help you out. Like Sean said, send us an email, shoot us a DM. We're monitoring those daily. Let us know if you have anything you want us to bring up, talk about, or anything you feel you can add to the conversation. Remember, we're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Check us out on all your major podcast streaming, Spotify, iHeart, Apple, Amazon. Check us out. we're here for you. So
Yeah, subscribe and like and rate and comment. Please, please. We want to know.
Even if
So-
you don't like us.
Yeah, we love haters.
or just one of us. I mean, if you don't like me, that's fine. Too bad. I'm stuck here in the middle.
All right,
Malcolm in the
boys.
middle.
All right. Well,
All right,
as
guys.
always, till next time, love you, pal.
Love you, pal.
Love you, pal.
We're all just trying to make it through. Love you, pal, I got you. We're all just trying to make it